Hey, what do you say? This is Boz and Men Speaking Out, and I'm here with an esteemed panel, and we are going to be talking about something that's actually important or should be important to all of us out here. And this is 2024 presidential election. Um, our country is going through a storm right now, I guess you could say, right? We've got, we got races against each other. We've got idealism against each other. I mean, it's of course to be idealistic. That's what the American dream is, right? To have your own thoughts. But at the end of the day, we need to think about who's the better fit here for our country. Who's the better person, or who has the better agenda or platform that will help secure our livelihoods, our mental health, and most importantly, or just as important, our financial economic status and how we can grow our wealth with our families and so forth. Because things are taking place now, we may not necessarily get the benefit from them, but in the future, our children and our children's children will. So as we speak here today, this is our 80th episode, and I'm proud to say my name is Boz. I am the Events Speaking Out creator, along with a esteemed panel of guests. We're here to have a conversation, right? It's a conversation. I have Dr. B. What's going on, man? How you doing?
Good. How about yourself, fellow gentlemen?
Good deal. Good deal. I have another doctor here, Dr. Steve Towns.
How you doing, guys? What's up?
We're glad to have you here. Of course, we have the Indianapolis political commentator, school teacher, comedian, and everything else in between, WIBC. I'm not giving them a plug, by the way. Abdul Shabazz. Hello, Abdul. How you doing? I think he paused. I think he's froze there for a minute, but I'm sure he'll come back to the scene here in just a second. And last but not least, we have Warith, who is also very knowledgeable in this space. That's my younger brother here, and I have an older brother and a younger brother, so I've got some greatness in the room per se. So let's talk about it for a second. I think my brother's frozen. I'm gonna take him out and put him back into the actual room here in just a second. There you go. Hopefully he'll come back unfroze. But anyway, all right. This is episode 80. We're discussing the 2024 election. Question I want to ask is, and anyone can answer this, who's the better fit and why? Okay. We got some feedback there. Did you guys hear my question?
We heard it.
Yeah.
I was kind of waiting for some of my more astute political commentators to jump in on this.
No,
you don't want me taking the lead. Everybody might turn the show off.
Hey, this is free game. I welcome it. Once again, the question is, I'm not quite sure, Abdul, if you heard or not, the question I had. And I think they're still connected with the phone. That's why I'm gonna remove this from the studio.
Hey, now can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So what was the question again? Who's the better fit?
Yes, who's a better fit and why?
Oops, give me 1 second here.
No worries. Please.
I think the better fit is basically whoever you like. I mean, to say fundamentally 80% of this country is fine. I would say 70% of the country is fine. It's the 15% on the far left and far right who make all the noise. It makes it seem like we're divided. We got all these issues. For the most part, America is fine. America always has been fine. America will be fine. We're just going through a weird time where a lot of people like to make a whole lot of noise. They're making a whole lot of noise. And they get the most attention, so my brothers in the media would pay attention to them because they're idiots. Okay. How's that?
Just tell us how you really feel. All right. Okay. All right. Must be nice on a Friday with a cigar. Dr. Towns, please.
I'm looking at it like this. I always like to look at the history of people and what they stand for. Both political parties are equally guilty. I'm an independent, but as far as the best fit as I'm concerned, looking at the past history of the two individuals, I have to look at Kamala as being the best fit. She's got issues. Nobody's going to be perfect, but when I just go back and look at the fact that a lot of racism has been unlocked by our former president. I think it was always there, but I think he gave people the permission to express it. But as far as I'm concerned, the best fit is going to be somebody that is going to meet our needs better, be more understanding of our programs.
Okay.
As we continue, I'm going to give you more thought on that.
Sure. Thank you. I appreciate that. What about you, Dr. B?
I think I'm more or less on the fence, right? So I'm a bit of a historian too, at least when it comes to social matters and looking at what has happened over the course of time with our country and our people in particular. So I'm not for the tricks and the treatment. I think that a lot of what we've experienced as individuals being in place, but not actually providing anything specific for us. And I prefer to play in a background where I know exactly what I'm dealing with, right? So for me, it's even like being in grad school and asking, do I prefer people to say that they're racist or not? I prefer you to say it.
Yeah.
Don't hide the fact, because that doesn't do anything but add salt to injury when you find out that they didn't really like you or do anything for you, but pretended to be with you. So I can deal with the racist. That's easy, because I know exactly where they stand if that's the case. But then, as Abdul said earlier, how much of that is actually true? Because by looking at the media, right, they're projecting a lot of information out there that doesn't necessarily hold its weight if we're comparing records. Who has done what? There's no side that is not guilty of doing something, right? We live in a racist country, so people talking about racism, that's like a no-brainer too. Like, do you not know where we are? This is what comes with the soil. So you have to deal with it on some front. So I'm kind of torn, but like I said, I'd rather deal with the devil I know versus the one that plays like they're for me. And I don't think so.
Interesting how you put that. Okay. All right. What about you, Maurice? Give it to me. What do you think?
Well, I think that both, all three perspectives are very interesting. I lean a little bit more towards Dr. B. Working in the real estate world, one of the core principles is a promise for a promise. And I think in the political world, typically we find that politicians take votes for granted. They promise a lot, but they never deliver on those items or those promises. I think that in the real estate world, a promise for a promise. So that means if I'm going to purchase a property, I'm going to give you something tangible to let you know that I'm a serious buyer. I want to purchase this home. And I began to look at it as if, in that perspective, just kind of looking at it from a real estate perspective, when I look at as an independent, as I look at the Dems and the Republicans, I want to know, what are your promises and what are you going to stand on? What promises are you going to keep? Or is it the same, message and pandering that continues to happen election cycle after election cycle? And I'm still on the fence in regards to who I may vote for. But at the same time, I'm looking at all angles. I'm looking at everything. When you put a Megan Thee Stallion on the stage and pander her around to Black folks, what does that say to folks that are who are taking this election seriously? So there's so much that we can dive into today. But yeah, I'm still on the fence.
Okay. Well, I think for someone like myself, if we sit and do the math, I'm for the lesser two evils, right? So I'm an independent. I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a Republican. That's where I stand. I'm for what's right, and I'm for what's going to be the most beneficial for not just our economic platforms or our healthcare and so on and so forth. There are a lot of things going on, especially talking about big pharma. Obviously, I have some attachment to. So I'm sitting looking at the whole picture, not just a little piece of the pie. I need to understand what this dynamic looks like, not just today, the next 4, 8, 16, 24 years. And of course, obviously, I'm counting on that because I'm planning to be around for that long. So at the end of the day, I need to understand what is the big message here, right? Now, there are some similarities when it comes to some of their platforms. Like, for example, I believe there's something about not charging taxes on tip, right? I believe they both have that, they both believe in that, right?
which is ridiculous.
Okay. We haven't gotten there yet, bro.
That is ridiculous, and that is pandering.
Okay. Please, once again, tell us how you really feel.
Sure. Because first of all, Dr. B, with all due respect, I do not believe America is a racist country. I never have. I do believe America is a country that has racists in it, but I do not believe America is a racist country. Because the fact that Barack Obama got elected twice sort of demonstrates that. Number two, on this whole issue of what's right, how do you define right? I mean, some people say everybody should have health care. That's right. Some people say, hey, you know what, the government should be out of the healthcare business. That's right. Some folks say, you know what, we should get rid of health insurance altogether. Just go back to paying your doctors in cash. That'll bring down the price of healthcare. Gentlemen, it is all a matter of perspective, plain and simple. And where you sit depends on where you stand. I've always been a firm believer of that, and covering politics for darn near 30 years as of this month.
Okay.
Yeah,
But that's just me thinking out loud. Sorry about that.
And I just want to add to that, right? So I'm independent as well, right? And so when I say this country is racist, it's built on a system of oppression. So the Marxists, right? Marxism is very well and alive in this country, and it has been. That's where it operates from. That's its moral compass, right? So if we don't have classism in this particular society, in this country, then what happens? So that inherently is what brings on the racism. And you're right. It's really whichever candidate fits your lifestyle. Who's going to bring on what your goals and values are? However, the real issue is that the intellectual ability of individuals in this country is so low, and it's gone down substantially since the 50s and the 60s. As the years continue going on, that divide of individuals who actually understand how this society works, it gets less and less. That's why it's easy to pander, because they believe what they're being told.
But you see, think about it though too. There's a lot of distractions, right? There's a lot of stuff going on right now. There's a lot of social media posts and things of that nature. If I can catch your attention over here, then you won't see me going in your back pocket taking money out of it, right? And a lot of us are just like, for example, let's just what some of the what I've heard. I'm voting for I'm mess her name up. I'm voting for Kamala because she is Black or she is a woman of color. I'm like, okay, well, wait, time out. I need a little bit more. Give me a little bit more, right? Or I'm voting for Donald Trump because he knows how to take care of the businessmen. Okay, well, I need a little bit more, and I mean, and I get it, but neither one of those reasons, those are not reasons for me. They make no sense to me. Give me some platform. Give me an agenda. Give me something. Give me the meat, and I will spit out the bones.
Well, it sounds like to me, Jamil, that you are asking for. You want to know what the policies that they are promoting, the policies that they stand on. When it comes to education, what are their policies on education, border patrol, healthcare, things of those, no Social Security, anything that's of relevance to our everyday life. I want to know what those things are. And when I say, when I'm on the fence, I want to know exactly where these folks stand. And in many cases, I have yet to hear where they stand on the most critical policies that affect us in our daily lives.
But here's the thing, though. A lot of that is already there. You have to go look for it. A lot of their policy positions, the details are on their website that dorky people like me read. We have nothing else better to do. But it's all there. Yeah, and also you have a ton of news sources in this country that can outline their policy. The Washington Post, New York Times, Chicago Tribune, lesser degree the Annapolis Star, and of course here locally, anypolitics.org. Shameless self-promotion there. But the information is there. But you can't you can't expect people to spoon feed. And not saying you gentlemen, because you get them all smart, but you can't expect to spoon feed people every single thing. And also, number two, people got shit to do. People got other stuff to do. They got wives, they got kids, they got families, they got jobs. They're trying to get the kids a baseball game, put the kids to bed, get dinner on the table. They don't have time to go through all that stuff. Which is why our running joke is, I go to these meetings, I sit through all this stuff, so you don't have to. And I come back and I explain to you, here's what happened. I never tell people what to think. I just tell them what to hear. Think about this. Now go make up your own mind.
Okay. All right, we have another guest on the call.
Let me ask you this real quick, Abdul. So, what is the vice president's policy on border patrol? Because I've been looking for it.
Her policy is basically it's sort of three things. It's sort of work with the Central American countries to stop the flow of migrants coming in. Number two, it's it's increased border security. More agents at the border. Part of a wall or a fence. Because by the way, you cannot build a wall to separate the United States and Mexico. You cannot do that. It is physically impossible to do that because a good chunk of the border is also private property. And so unless you're going to start taking private property away from people, you can forget that stupid wall. And by the way, you can climb over a wall, you can climb under a wall, and actually you can squeeze through a fence. So this whole thing about building a wall is ridiculous because it's not going to work. Now, certain parts of the border you can build a wall and increase security. But 9 out of 10. But somebody say we need the wall to keep illegal drugs out of the country. Most drugs come in here legally. It's in cars and trucks. So you need to increase the technology, and that'll take care of that. There are ways to do things without boiling down to simplicity. But once again, it's complicated. And if you can't explain that nowadays in a 15-second soundbite, you're basically screwed.
Okay.
So those things could be actually implemented now since she's still in the SVP.
Theoretically, yes and no. How's that for an answer?
Okay, that's not an answer, but that's a political answer, right? Yeah, I'm going to give it the attention it deserves.
No, it's more of a legal answer than a political answer.
How do we deal with the money though that they're giving these illegals that are coming into the country?
Okay, what money are they giving illegals?
I mean, Chicago is a bedrock for what's happening as far as how they're receiving services over the individuals who work hard every single day.
Actually, that is not true. In the city of Chicago budget, which is $1.6 billion and some change, the aid for migrants is mostly housing and shelter is like $50 million. So it's basically $100 million is like what, 10% of that? No, 160 million is 10% of that. So basically a third of like 3% of the annual budget of the city of Chicago goes toward quote unquote migrants. The other $1.3 billion goes to the citizens of Chicago.
Well, speaking of Chicago, we got somebody from Chicago right now on the call, obviously. Brother Boss, are you there?
Yes, gentlemen, can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Jamil, thank you for the podcast, and gentlemen, thank you all for coming on today, and greetings to the listeners. I just wanted to say, I always thought that the best form of government was representative government. And in my humble opinion, I mean, I'm not a Democrat and I'm not a Trump supporter, but just of what I've seen within the past few years, I really don't have much confidence in both parties. And whether it be domestically, particularly when you gentlemen are talking about the border, and we having these unnecessary wars in Afghanistan and or at least in the Middle East, and these wars in Ukraine and the possible war in Taiwan. It's almost like if we don't have war, we can't have a government. And I just wanted to say again that I don't have much confidence in both parties. I don't believe that we shouldn't have government. I believe the best government is representative government. But in my humble opinion, based on the way the government has been within the last, probably since the start of the war on terrorism, I don't really have too much confidence. In fact, I think our form of government is antiquated moving into the 21st century.
What do you mean antiquated? What is that? What do you mean say antiquated? What do you mean by antiquated?
I will explain exactly what I mean. When you look at the world today, we are no longer in the Cold War. The collapse of the Soviet Union, the communism as we know it traditionally, under not necessarily Marx, but under Boris Yeltsin and Gorbachev, doesn't exist anymore. And we're seeing in the 21st century, we're looking at the move towards a multipolar world. And it seems to me, in my humble opinion, that the United States still think they're fighting the Cold War, and they're trying to hold on to an old world that's going out, this world that was put in place after World War II with this unipolar world. And it seems like to me that the government, whether they be Democrats, whether they be Republicans, because it seems like they all seem to vote the same, particularly on international issues. We see the rise of BRICS, the BRICS nations. We see the collapse of Western Europe, the collapse of the G7 nations, and we see the growth of the BRICS nations, of the G20. And it seems like the United States is trying to hold on to a world that's antiquated. And that world of antiquated is the unipolar world, but we're moving towards a multipolar world in the 21st century.
Okay.
I absolutely agree. It's the dominance of power. And just to kind of add to that, right? They talk about inclusivity, which is what you're referring to, Brother Boz, but they don't want that. They want total dominance, and they want it to remain the way that it always has been. And we know that when you have more government, it's not good for the people. More government is not good for the people. It never has been, although they're in place to serve the people. And that is not the way that this government has operated. It is not the way that they see it fit. And that is precisely why they slick talk and they fast talk. They are not for the people.
What are you calling more government?
The more people you put in office, right? The higher you stack this up, the more organizations you build, ends up becoming more of a policing of the people. It's not that complicated. They make it complicated through legalese and in the way in which they organize. But is it really that complicated? You're a doctor, you're a dentist, right? As we move forward in the future, there will be new technology to help people's teeth, right? But when you get down to the basics, you just need healthy teeth. How many different tools will they create? How many different processes do we have to go through? How many pieces of paper do I have to fill out? How many hands do I have to go through before I actually sit in a chair and you get to work?
Bureaucracy is a problem, but you still haven't.
I'm giving an analogy.
You're telling me no one likes a whole lot of regulation, but regulation in many instances is absolutely necessary. There's a reason why there's a Food and Drug Administration. If you think about all the things that have happened at the beginning of in the food industry and that sort of stuff over the years, without regulation, these companies would just go amok. You know it, and I know it.
Yeah, well, I will have to actually co-sign that too. Of course, working for who I work for as well, right? Of course, the FDA has to put their stamp on anything before it goes out the door for the company I represent.
They have to do that. There's certain things that just affect us in such a profound way that we have to regulate them. We cannot leave that up to the capitalists to make that decision for us. And I'm not a communist, but we can't leave it up to them because they will take advantage of everything.
But, well, if I may say something.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, sir. I just wanted to say that if we look at the New Deal that was put in place post 1945, up to 1933, 34. Yes. Since the rise of capital power in America, the President Eisenhower talked about the military-industrial complex. Well, we have went beyond that today because you have like APAC, you have the Department of Defense, you have all these interests. And all these financial interests have worked so hard over the last 70 plus years to put their interests ahead of the American people's interests. So now we have a situation. I agree. We do need regulation. We don't want our neighbors to go out and dump chemicals in Lake Michigan because they're trying to cut corners with their business.
They'll absolutely.
Yeah, they will. Absolutely. They will do that. But I see, but private sector power since 1945, we have seen a rise and increase in America in private sector power. And there have been less power that's been taken away from the American people and the voter.
Okay. I want to make sure we stay on task.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we're getting off on a tangent. We really need to. We are going to change this entire governmental system in one election.
Correct.
I think we can all come to that conclusion.
Correct. Correct.
So, I mean, that's just not happening.
Yes.
Getting back to Brother Shabazz's question, let's talk about fit.
Right.
We've kind of gone off onto a tangent, but let's get back to the central issue.
Okay.
I mean, Abdul, what do you want? What are you looking for? Give me 5 things that you're looking for.
I want my comic books, I want my whiskey, I want my cigars, I want my popcorn to be left the fuck alone. How about that?
Well, I mean, that's one thing. That's your prerogative. And I'm quite sure everybody will leave you alone.
Jeez Louise.
No, seriously, no. Here's what I want. Basically, I want effective government. And so
Okay.
when I say effective and efficient government, it depends on what the mission is. Because sometimes we need big government to do some things, sometimes we need smaller government to do things. There's sort of one size fits all. I want less government. Okay, less government where? I mean, it's one thing to do these sort of bumper sticker slogans, no blood for oil. Okay, fine, that's all good. Now, what does that mean? Does that mean you don't go to war for resources, or do you go to war if someone's threatening your resources? I always tell people life is simple, but it's complicated. The answers are relatively easy. It's the implementation that's going to be the pain in the butt.
Okay. You got another one. I wanted 5.
So, like I said, that's if you ask me what I want efficient government. I don't want less government or more government. I just want it to be efficient and do its job and move on. That's why I loved Mitch Daniels when he was governor of Indiana. Because Mitch Daniels had a rule: if you could find it in the phone book, then probably the government shouldn't be doing it.
I like Mitch Daniels too. Right. All right. I guess for someone like myself to answer piggyback off of that, Dr. Towns, I think for myself, I would like to see better health care for those whom cannot necessarily afford the high cost of care, period. Now, when I say better health care, obviously, be working in the pharmaceutical industry, we see and do a lot in this space, and we all have some family member, if not ourselves, on some sort of medication. So I think for myself, I would like, and having a mother who passed away from Alzheimer's, God rest her soul, I just have that's something near and dear to me when it comes to providing quality health care for those who can't take care of themselves. So, and I'm not saying that it should one size fits all here, because it doesn't. What I'm simply saying is that what better way can we do to provide, I know we got the Affordable Care Act and so forth, and that's fine, but we have some folks that can't even really afford that.
Respectfully. Bill, here's the thing on the healthcare issue, and this is not to go off on a tangent, but part of the healthcare issue is taking better care of ourselves, is eating right, is exercising. I mean, that's half the battle right there. Case in point, in my other, when I put on my lawyer hat, one of the things I do is I do evictions. Now, people say the landlords are the bad guy. Well, no, you should pay your friggin' rent. And there's a thing at the City of Indianapolis office called rental assistance. And people come in to the eviction hearing, they meet with the rental assistance people, and then sometimes they get help, sometimes they don't, depending on what their situation is. But the one thing they don't do is, here we go. There should be in order to get rental assistance, I'm firm believer you should have to do like a financial planning class for like 2 days. Like, hey, here's how you budget. Here's how are you paying more than a week's pay? Is your rent more than a week's take home pay? Then you're probably paying too much to live there. Plain and simple. And so I think part of it is it's an education component, to healthcare, to education, and to healthcare, and other government programs. I mean, it's one thing to help somebody out. And Jim Edgar said it best. Jim Edgar is a former governor of Illinois. He said welfare should be a trampoline, not a hammock.
I get that. I understand everything you said, but society is not cut that way, right? They didn't teach how to balance a checkbook in high school. I never learned that, right? That was on the job training, right? They never taught us how to take care of our bodies as far as our diet and exercise, the importance cholesterol, blood pressure, diabetes, and so forth, right? Look what's being advertised out here. Look, if you go into some of these neighborhoods and some of these grocery stores, and they're selling expired stuff, and some of the food and they have contained is and you know as well as I do. Most of them from the South Side of Chicago. You know as well as I do when you go on some of these side streets, some of these side stores, some of the awful smell that they have. What is being done in order to change that? What policies are being put in place to make sure that everybody benefits from this? That we don't have internet desert. You know as well as I do, driving through the city of Indianapolis, I can go through a certain area and my signal, my bars is like terrible, but I go over here to Cornwall Fishers and I got everything. I got every bar and then some on my phone.
Excuse.
Hold on for a second, Brother Boss. Let me just make sure. Let me get my thought out. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, what are we doing to make sure somebody's marginalized, or what is some of these platforms, some of these agendas? How are they helping some of these marginalized and challenged neighborhoods stand up and be able to reap the benefits of this new internet age of artificial intelligence, of machine learning? How are we building a diverse workforce? And who in this presidential election is going to help us get us there? That's really my major.
Jamil. Mm-hmm. No, thank you for that. Not to go off on a tangent myself. I know that we live in a republic, and I've heard somebody say one time that a democracy assumes an enlightened electorate. A voter. There are some things that people, when they see is a problem, they have to stand up and do something about it. The politicians, with respect to them, can only do so much. And at some point, people in the society have to take a proactive approach to how they solve problems, particularly on the local level. I remember when Harold Washington, when he was mayor of Chicago, and I remember there were some people that went down and complained to Harold about, Harold, you said you would do these things when you got elected, and now you're elected, you're not doing anything. And he said, I would love to do it, but your city council is holding stuff up. And these people got on the phone and they called their aldermen and told him, they said, if you want to stay in office, we need these done. We expect Harold to do it. We support the man. He said we're doing, we want it done. And the people took a proactive approach. And even though those aldermen, those city council members didn't want to do it, but their hand was forced to. So I'm just saying, in some cases, we can't completely put it all on the politicians. The people themselves have to take a proactive approach on how they want the society to be run.
Well, what I'm saying is, Brother Boz, I get that and I understand it, but in this presidential election, exercising your right to vote is that approach. Okay.
Well, I mean, it varies, because the question has to be, how much influence does the average electorate has on a politician? Because you have to also remember, you have special interest groups and you have lobbyists, and when you have a government where money becomes people, how does a person living in the projects who wants to vote, how do they compete with a lobbyist who comes up with millions of dollars?
Easy.
You know, the squeaky wheel gets wheel gets the grease.
Okay, easy. That same lobbyist has the same number of votes as you do. It's called one. It's called get organized. When Greg Ballard ran for mayor of Indianapolis, when Greg Ballard ran for mayor of Indianapolis, he had 2 people working for him and 50 grand in the bank. That was it. But you know, people were mad and ticked off about their taxes and property taxes. And they threw out the incumbent mayor 2-term, go work for a 3rd term. So I would never underestimate the individual people to get organized and come together and make changes in their community. Because guess what? You get the government you deserve.
But that's what I just said a few minutes ago.
Hold on.
You repeated everything I just said a few minutes ago. That's what I basically said, that you can't depend on politicians to govern society. People have to take a proactive approach.
We're going to stay on task. We're getting up on a tangent again. We're going to stay on task. All right. So let's talk about Kamala Harris for a second. Okay. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about her policies and her platform. Okay. Now, some of them, I did some investigation myself, and I looked at, and I'm going to give you guys a few bullet points, especially coming from the economic platform. that I can see. All right, she's talking about housing, right? I think it was providing $25,000 for first-time home buyers. Okay, I'm okay with that. Thoughts?
But see, once again, here's our housing problem. Our housing problem is simple economics. It's Econ 101. It's supply and demand. When supply goes up and demand goes down, the prices drop. When demand goes up, supply goes down. The prices go the other way. The thing is, during the pandemic, we're already having a housing shortage, particularly here in Indiana, before the pandemic. The pandemic sped all that up, and it caused problems in our supply chain. And Jamil, you work for Eli Lilly, you know exactly what supply chain is. And when the supply chain gets disrupted, housing prices go through the roof. Now, slowly but surely, it's starting to come back. But to give people more money to buy a house, like, okay, well, when you buy a house, what's it? Is your mortgage more than a week's take-home pay? If it is, you got a problem. You probably shouldn't be living there.
Okay.
That's people want the big house now as opposed to the starter home.
Okay. Listen, Barry, I'll wait for you to chime in.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a noble gesture. $25,000 for a first-time home buyer is great. The challenge that first-time home buyers have right now is affordability. That's the challenge that we're seeing from coast to coast. I'm licensed in several states to do business in several states. The challenge that I'm seeing is that the average person does not make enough money to afford a home or a mortgage. Now, with that being said, having the down payment assistance is a great program. We work with a lot of folks that have those. There's plenty of programs out there. But the challenge that most folks are having is that affordability, which is direct reflection of the economy and the supply chain. We saw an increase of 103% increase in home prices over the last 4 years, particularly for new homes. We saw 103% change in pricing. So what was a $180,000 home is now a $290,000 home, if that makes sense. And that was a brand new home. So yeah, I mean, if that's her plan for housing, so hey, it is what it is. It won't move the needle. There are programs out there right now that very similar programs.
Okay. Dr. Towns, your thoughts?
Well, I don't know. My feeling is, as far as I think we're kind of getting off on a tangent about, you threw the $25,000 out there. That's a small pig as far as I'm concerned.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that we're talking around the big issue, and the big issue is what candidate is the best fit. I keep coming back to that.
Mm-hmm.
$25,000 in my life isn't going to make any difference, but it may make a difference with somebody else.
Correct.
But as the other brother said, there are programs out here. Even if you give them the $25,000, are they going to have enough to keep the house up?
Right.
All those things are factors.
Right.
So I think we really have to get back to the central issue about who is going to do what for us, who has the best chance of it.
Okay.
And
let me ask you this though: who is us?
Abdul, come on here. Listen to me. You've dominated things.
Of course, that's what I do for a living.
You know more than I do. You're a smart guy. The history folks out here, look at the history of the candidates. Tell me what Trump has done for you, or will do for you. Well, he's had a chance.
Well,
Can you make any difference in your life?
I look at the opportunity zones that were created under the Trump administration that I've become very knowledgeable about, and how that has helped clients, particularly first-time home buyers, which came in as a very valuable piece of legislation. Also, I have a friend of mine who is an administration at a HBCU, and the funds that were provided through the Trump administration for HBCUs during his term, I thought that was a lift or a way to propel those that are interested in attending HBCUs and make sure they keep their doors open. I mean, there's some things that I can look at, and then I look at the you reference the history, right, which is important. We have to look at that, and what a person's record is. Not saying that he is the end all be all or that I'm going to vote for Trump. Yeah, I'm definitely looking at the history, but also looking at the good as well as those things that are not so favorable.
All right, what has he done good? I mean, I hear other messages from HBCU presidents that all that's going to go away. I hear a totally different message from them.
Yeah, well, I think,
I'm hearing what you're saying, but it's not jiving with what I'm hearing with people that I actually know at HBCUs who are running these institutions. They aren't saying that.
Interesting.
It is. So, I'm just throwing that out. What do you guys feel about diversity and inclusion? How do you feel about that? You think that's going to be affected by whoever is picked?
I'm a big advocate of DE&I, and I do also believe that it will be impacted significantly whomever is picked. I think alone right now, I think there are like 10 states that have, I think Indiana being one of them, that is talking about eliminating diversity, equity, inclusion, and even at the college university level. Now, of course, I don't know what that means for private institutions and so forth, but I do know that this whole fight around critical race theory being taught in schools and so forth, and how it should be taught at a college level, and DE&I is actually dividing or not. It's just a very touchy, shall I say, sensitive subject, because once again, I support diversity, equity, and inclusion 200%. But with the wrong person in office, that will go away.
You see, here's my issue on diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm all for it as long as we're not just talking about skin color and ethnicity. I would argue that true diversity is diversity of thought and diversity of opinion. Because my best friend, white guy from Kansas, me, Southside Chicago. So you would think that we're diverse, but actually we're not, because we think pretty much exactly the same, even though we came up in respective backgrounds. So I would argue if you really want diversity, equity, and inclusion, then you should not be on race, it should be based on income. Because I don't think somebody from Southside Chicago is any worse or better off than somebody from rural Appalachia. They both have their own respective challenges. And so if you really want to, lift all boats, like I said, Kyla's what, Jamil, your youngest daughter, she's in grad school, right?
Yes, she is.
She's basically third generation college graduate. Third generation, because our father had a college education, we all have college educations, now our nieces and nephews have college educations. So we're fine. But our cousins, who may have some more financial challenges, they need the extra help. So I would argue, if you're going to do diversity, equity, and inclusion, go for them, not for people like us. Now, please note, I'll still take advantage of it because this is a system that works. I play the hand I'm dealt and work with the system that we have to deal with. But for the most part, it should be based on income, not on race and gender.
I'll echo some of those thoughts. I definitely believe in diversity, equity, and inclusion as well. I draw the line in regards to being able to protect children. And let me delve into that. When I say protect children, when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's no reason that we should be talking about gender and sex in elementary. So that diversity, equity, and inclusion, as I just went to a major conference in Chicago with my higher ed fellows, this is a hot topic, and there's just some foundational grounds in which we're playing in other spaces and other areas, and we're actually baiting different types of behavior. And that's perfectly fine, right? It's not about being judgmental, but at least let the children grow up and get into high school before you start presenting these ideas, because they're planting seeds, which is only making it a more confused generation when they are having difficulty just learning in general.
Well, it kind of goes back to Dr. Towns' question. Yep. Who's the better fit? Right? We're giving up, I'm an advocate, you're an advocate, he's an advocate. We understand, do thoughts and whatever, but who's the better fit?
Let's try to leave the real controversial stuff like gender recognition out of this at this point. I think, Abdul, I'm very surprised that you want this color-free society that judges people on merit and is colorblind, but that's not the way this world works.
Oh no, I'll be the first person to admit that. You're absolutely right.
And I don't know, I might have misjudged what you said, but you were basically saying, well, let's not, let's do economy, let's judge everybody on where they are. That ain't the way this society works. And it's not going to. They have to have a push to get them to do the right thing. And they're not going to do it. Now, who's going to give them that push? We have to decide that. And I think that's going to be important in the long run, because if we can't get our kids to get a decent education and get them into higher education and produce doctors and real estate people and lawyers and stuff like that and support our HBCUs, we're in trouble.
Yes.
But also, I'm a firm believer that college is not for everybody. I'm a firm believer in that. I've been teaching college, like I said, once again.
That's not the point. That's not.
No. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. My thing is, everybody needs. I'll argue in the 21st century, you need a post-secondary education, whether it's trade school, community college, certificate, trade school. You need something. And if I'm an employer, for me, diversity is good for business, because I don't want a bunch of old white men when I'm trying to go for younger people.
Abdul, when I said that, I meant that generically, the trades would hold the same thing: diversity, equity, and inclusion. If they don't have a push in the butt, I'm not saying that everybody has to have a college education. Never said that. But what I'm saying is that in order for us to get into those positions, they need a kick. And they'll always talk about, you're not qualified, you can't do this, you can't do that. Hell, if we don't have an education of any sort, if we can't read and write, we're in trouble.
That's why I believe in school choice.
Well, like
everybody doesn't have choices, Abdul.
Right. We need quality education. Yeah, we need quality education.
Everybody doesn't have choices.
Which means, then the workforce needs to be intentional. And you're right. Everyone does not have choices. Some people are, the resources are the ones that they have around them. And that's where redlining came in. So if you couldn't move around, if you didn't have transportation, then you were stuck. I guess getting back to your question, right? Who's the better platform, right? Whose platform is best? Again, I'm independent because I do have a hard stop here. I'm still sifting through, right? Because at one level, I know what we received under Trump. I know what life was like for me. And it wasn't bad at all. Things really worked. Under this current administration, it's been very interesting. It's been dicey. However, with Kamala, however you want to pronounce it, no disrespect, her leadership style has been in other areas and not necessarily of people in the way in which this platform will give her an opportunity to demonstrate. And I guess the question is it worth the risk? Because it is a risk, right? It's a toss-up. It sounds good, but I don't think we've really nailed down anything concrete that we know for certain she will and can deliver.
Dr. B, tell me how your life got better under our past president. Be specific.
Well, I mean, I was in the housing industry as well. So I definitely saw the benefits of individuals who were able to sustain a living and push their families forward. I echo Warren's statements earlier. I saw that firsthand in dealing with them. And then, like I said earlier, not leaning one way or the other. Sometimes it's best to just know what you're dealing with because you can prepare versus having a lofty goal, right? Or an assumption that things are just going to get better, alluding to race just because we may look alike. Skinemy doesn't make you kinemy at all. Like Abdul said, we may be more alike in how we think versus the color of our skin.
Dr. B, that's a nice thing to say. It ain't. That's not the way the world is. I hate that. We can disagree. We're good. We're good. I'm not gonna fall.
I get it. Yeah.
Look, I've been through this whole thing of hiring. I'm a lot older than anybody here. I've been through this whole thing. I give you guys a little history. My great-great-grandfather was one of the first African-American physicians in this country. He graduated from Dartmouth in 1854. He was started at Harvard in 1850. He was kicked out of school because the white students wouldn't go to school with him by Oliver Wendell Holmes Sr. My grandfather was the first black coach in the NFL. They went through tremendous racism. My dad was the only African American in 4 years at the University of Illinois School of Dentistry. You talk about racism, you know, all the stuff you're saying, you know, you know, it just comes back down to that. And, you know, you can say, well, we might not be, judged by, I might not like you because you're black. We're all in the same boat, whether we want to or not. I'm not going to be able to change my skin color, nor do I want to. But I have to deal with the same thing that the brother who doesn't have the things that I have, because I'm going to be judged the same thing the way by white people.
Yeah,
we have to stay. The first thing we have to do is stick together, and we have to make some decisions. If we stick together as a group, I think these politicians will have a lot more respect for us and hold them accountable. And I do agree with Abdul on that. We haven't agreed with many things, but I do agree with him on that.
But because you know what, my friend, even a broken clock is right twice a day.
I got you.
Well,
but I've got some barriers with I'm thinking more. Not, it's hard for me to say this, but no, it's not hard for me to say it. I'm thinking more of the character of the individuals. I don't know Kamala's character. Our past president, I still keep going back to the Central Park Six. He took out a full page ad on those brothers, and they sat in jail, and he never apologized to them. Never.
Yeah.
And that was strictly racism.
Purely.
And a leopard don't change his spots.
Yeah. I'm
that's what gets me.
Yeah, I'm with you, Doc. That District Park 5, or the exonerated 5, what they call it now.
Right.
I totally echo.
He's never, acknowledge it. Say, hey, I was wrong. I shouldn't have done that. But when you take a full page ad out in the 4 major New York newspapers, and this isn't coming from the media, I was there when it happened.
Wow.
Sounds like to me we need to look at other options.
That's on voting libertarian.
When you start there,
I mean, there's other candidates. There's other candidates that are running for president.
That's one
true,
thing.
but not true.
Right. No, I definitely. There's a lot to. This is not just like a one and done conversation, and we really have to think about, the broader picture here. Like I said, you talked about D&I. I'm talking about diverse workforce. We're talking the same language, right? Because tomorrow's workforce should look like us and then some, right? And everybody needs to give an opportunity. So whomever we put into that White House, hopefully, prayerfully, respectfully, that they'll have that mindset and understand that in order for this world to go around and to work in a space where we all can coexist, then we have to put policies in place to make that happen. So once again, I am an independent.
I am too. I might not sound like it, but I am.
I am an independent, it's really hard. It's really hard to put your finger on this moving target. I thought I had it right here. I thought I had it right there, but the target is constantly moving. And we really want to think about now the landscape of America. Where will we be, and who's going to help us get us there? And who is the lesser, once again, the lesser of two evils?
Well, the other thing we talked about, does the group feel as though, honestly, that healthcare is going to get better under a Trump administration?
I don't know.
Well,
can you honestly? I'm in the field. Can you? Yeah. And you are too, Shabazz. Mm-hmm. Do you honestly feel as though that's going to get better?
Respectfully,
it's a great question.
No, and I'll be right back. No.
Yeah,
Abdul, you can lead the charge.
That's a great question.
You're my new best friend. You know that, don't you?
Oh yeah, my friend. One of my closest and dearest friends in this town forever is a progressive liberal Democrat. We disagree on everything, but we love each other like brother and sister because we're like the old days. We don't take our politics personally.
No. But we get to the points that you guys brought up. Better healthcare, education. Are we going to get a better education? Are we going to have the opportunities? Education is an opportunity.
It is.
Whether you want to take it, but you should be at least given that opportunity to get a decent education, and then you can do what you want or not do what you want. That's your fault.
It's the great equalizer.
It is. It's huge. It's huge.
It will open up doors that you wouldn't imagine.
And getting back to Abdul, and when I say education, I mean it broadly. You can be a plumber, you can be an electrician, you can be a painter, you can be a contractor, any of those things. But it's education. You got to learn how to do that stuff. And I'm saying that generically when I use the term education.
Right.
So do you honestly feel as though that is going to be something that's going to be enhanced by our former president?
I would say yes and no.
So out of the equation, you say in the other, Wirtz said the same thing. Wirtz said, well, it didn't bother me while he was in it. It didn't bother me a whole lot either. But I was thinking about other people.
Yeah, I can see that. Thinking about the greater good for all.
You have to. And sometimes you have to. You have to.
And how does that impact?
We're all judged the same way because of the color of our skin. We don't have any way of getting around. And white people can sit up there and say, well, I don't look at you like that. That's bullshit.
Gentlemen, if I may, I'm putting on my political hat here, stepping. It has to do with the conversation. I tend to believe there are three types of people in this world. There are white people, there are non-white people, and there are white supremacists. So I can agree that there are people out here who are white who don't want us to have anything, and they fight tooth and nail to make sure that we don't get the things that we need as a people to be self-sufficient like any other civilized people. So I don't disagree with that.
Well, once again, I totally understand where everyone's coming from this perspective. And we want to, as the good words of Dr. Towns, want to stay on task. But gentlemen, this is not a conversation that can be a one and done, honestly. This has to be something to be sat down in a group and a round table, and just kind of be able to share your thoughts and ideas and concepts, and maybe over a martini or a cigar.
I would love to go out with you guys.
Yes. Just have a nice cocktail, right? And Dr. Towns,
I'd love to do that, man.
You have on this call right now, you have the Shabazz brothers.
I know.
You're all four of us, all brothers.
It's a rough crowd.
Yeah.
Well, I would say, Jamil, just digging a little bit deeper. We have to start thinking about self-sufficiency in a perspective, but from a community perspective. When we lean on government, whether it's local or federal government, we become like a child to the system. We have to start thinking about building and providing resources outside of the system. Building relationships with governments or communities outside of our community for the greater good. That's just my perspective on things. Looking at land and how can we establish health clinics and spaces for our own and just provide a better overall infrastructure for our community. We've got to start with my good friend, he passed away, Tony, he said, we need a power base. He used to always talk about that. Need a power base. And now I know what that means, because we lack those resources that we truly need. They can help people like our veterans and folks in our community, our children who deserve the best quality education possible, and our teachers that deserve to be paid the best quality a quality wage, and then the health resources. And then we can focus on those things. We can talk all day about politicians and presidents, but at the end of the day, it all falls back on our shoulders.
It absolutely does.
Yeah, exactly.
You're right. I totally agree with you.
Healthcare, education, diverse workforce. Those are what's important to me, right? I want to make sure that tomorrow's generation, those CEOs, those CIOs, those leaders look like me.
Yeah, I mean, that's just we hired our we hired our first 2 employees. You know, just recently this week actually hired our first 2 employees in our company's history, and now we're going to take off and start hiring more, continue to build and grow, and we're excited about that. And I think that's what this is all about.
Yeah, and of course, me having children coming into the workforce, you know, fresh out of college, what does that look like? What does the landscape look like? So that's what's important to me. That is why I said earlier in our conversation, it might not happen in my lifetime, but what happens down the road in our generations down the road. So how is this domino effect going to shape out and turn out when it comes?
Entrepreneurship, man, is huge. You know, being an entrepreneur is, to me, is just the way to go. It opens the door. Abdul, you understand that concept. You know, everybody on this panel understands that concept.
Oh yeah,
of entrepreneurship.
for real.
And I think that to me is the message that we should always be sending. You know, it's not to get a degree to go work for someone. Yeah, I want the degree to have the credential, but how can I provide opportunities for other people?
Exactly.
And we talked about the greater good. Well, hey, we can't lean on a benevolent white person to help us. We got to help ourselves.
Absolutely.
And you said it, right?
Just remember this, gentlemen. Anything the government gives you, the government can take away.
Good point.
Thank you for the optimism. I'm looking for you to just, you know, I'm ready to cap it off. I'm ready to cap off the conversation. You just stepped in and did that. See, that's what happens when you got a big brother in politics. But anyway,
ain't nothing wrong with it.
Gentlemen, that's why I practice a policy of what's called enlightened self-interest.
Survival.
Doing the right thing, not only because it's the right thing to do, but also I can make some few bucks off of it.
There you go. Once again, gotta love them. Yeah, we're all from the same mom and dad. Gotta love it. Okay, so as we move forward in this podcast, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for your time. I appreciate you guys taking time out your busy day, midday, to even have this conversation. Dr. Towns,
this was easy.
We will have a offline discussion with the in this circle.
I love this.
Yes, in this circle, and really have some men speaking out connection time to really have a conversation. And I really enjoyed this. I thank you all very much. Maurice, Brother Boz, Abdul, Dr. Towns, thank you very much. Everyone on Boz, please check us out on menspeakingout.com. And thank you for your time, gentlemen. Have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Good night, and may your God go with you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.